Welcome to the Everything Coworking podcast. This is your host, Jamie Russo. Thank you for joining me today. This is actually my first recording in the new year, and we're already at the end of January. We did have some episodes along the way that were pre-recorded, but an official Happy New Year. I had a little bit of an extended holiday this year. I had kind of one of those YOLO invitations to go on a sailing trip in the British Virgin Islands. We had a captain that was part of our own crew, and we made our own food. So it wasn't the super bougie ones that come with crew, which is on the aspirational list for someday, but it was really amazing. It was like sailing around in a Corona commercial for a week. And it was with my CrossFit bestie. So we had a great time, although I got some very minor workouts in on the boat, not no weightlifting happening during that week. Super glad I did it. And sometimes you just have to take time out and do those things because you never know when you get another chance. And I'm doing a lot of reflection about, what's most important and meaningful in life. And spending time with friends is one of those things that brings us happiness. And also being in service of others outside of ourselves. And for me, that's you. I'm here to help you. So I'm glad you're here. And for those of you who don't know me, I have been in the co-working industry for over a decade. I started my first space way back in 2012, and I help new operators launch profitable co-working spaces and existing operators optimize their operations, their marketing, all the things with the focus on being profitable. So I'm glad you're here. One of the members of our Profit Accelerator group reached out and she said, hey, she owns a building. She owns several buildings in Florida. And she said, well, I'm working, on growing my business in this building, but what about other locations? She was asking about IWG and Regus, typically the Regus brand, and their partnership program. So they cold outreach to her. They probably found her in CoStar because she owns the building. If you own a building, you've probably heard from them or you will. And if you are an operator, it's possible that they reach out to you as well. So today I want to talk about IWG called. How should I approach this? Should I answer? And what are the questions that I should ask? So I want to go through why are they reaching out? What should you be asking about their proposed partnership opportunity? What are the watchouts and when it might be a good idea? So first of all, our Profit Accelerator group, that's the group the member is in who reached out, launched late last year, and I love it. It's a small group coaching program that allows me to really get into your business. It's a very small group, so we do weekly calls. You get weekly coaching, weekly accountability over Zoom, and it's incredible for anybody who has kind of some goals for their business and they know they need direction and they need accountability and they need the ability to ask questions whenever they come up. So this person, we are working on a number of things, her website, kind of her branding, her sales funnel, her everything, her product mix, her pricing. And then this came, into her inbox and she could just email me and ask me. And I'm recording her a podcast in response because I have met with a number of landlords who have interacted with IWG. They've reached out and proposed a partnership. And without showing me anything confidential, they want to know about the model and how it works. And they want to be able to evaluate what IWG is proposing. So if you are in that camp, I want to give you some perspective and help you understand how to think about this opportunity. So here we go. First, before we jump in, one more reminder for my current Revenue Playbook members. That is our other membership for operators of co-working spaces focused on helping you generate more revenue and be more profitable. Your training for January is up on our school platform and it is a juicy one. So I want to make sure that you know it's there. And for anybody else who can benefit from this content, I want to make sure that you know what we're up to. So in January, our training was your 2026 co-working promotion calendar. So, why you should be running promotions, how to leverage your email list for those promotions, a sample calendar so that you can choose which promotions you would like to run. And then we provided 3 playbooks that include swipe files of project plans, the actual promotional emails, ideas on what the promotion should be. Are they light discounts? Are they bonuses, etc.? They're plug and play. So the training is up and all the swipe files and resources and templates are up with those in the classroom in school. And if you are interested in joining us, because you could use that in your business, you could use more revenue, either our monthly calls or our weekly program, you can get that info at everythingcoworking.com/profit. Okay, so why might IWG reach out? IWG is the parent company of brands like Regus, HQ, and Spaces. So they have long operated their own corporate owned locations. They are the largest operator of co-working or flex spaces in the world. They have over 4,000 locations around the world. They tend to lean towards the more traditional executive suite office model, which, as an aside, if that's the model you want to run, tends to be pretty profitable. And they've been doing this for a long time, so they know how to design profitable spaces. Speaking of spaces, the brand Spaces is one of theirs, along with HQ and some other brands that they have in their portfolio. They're likely reaching out to you to do a Regus brand, but they might have another brand depending on where you're located, what type of building you run, etc. So they no longer want to sign leases. They don't want that liability. They want to work with asset owners who, post pandemic, have office buildings that are not highly occupied. So before the pandemic, when everybody went to work, office spaces that were reasonably attractive probably had reasonably high occupancy. So building owners were fairly happy. They're covering their mortgage, they're covering expenses. Now, fast forward to post pandemic, and that is no longer the case. We have a lot of landlords who are sitting on very lovely office buildings that have a low occupancy, or at least they have low utilization, which probably means that once those asset owners and tenants get to a lease renewal point, those leases may be downsized or terminated. So, lots of landlords of office space trying to find a solution to their occupancy issue. And buildings are valued based on occupancy, essentially. So a building does not want to have low occupancy because then their valuation will be lower when they go to sell. This is a whole different conversation, but flex may or may not solve that problem, especially under a management agreement. Landlords tend to want leases, and operators sometimes like a management agreement. So Regus, in general, I'm not saying they're not signing any leases. They certainly still have a number of legacy leases out there. But their expansion strategy is really around partnering with landlords and taking advantage of unoccupied space. So the landlords are a big opportunity for IWG. IWG's competitive advantage is that they operate not necessarily the nicest spaces in the world, but they have the largest network. And they really leverage that network with some of their membership options. So WeWork does this to some extent too. WeWork does not have nearly the number of locations that IWG has. So according to Google, Regus operates over 4,000 locations in more than 120 countries. They're in over 900 cities, catering to over 2.5 million members. WeWork has 580 to 600 locations worldwide, with 300 locations for on-demand and partner networks. So this, I think, is the key for IWG. This network of theirs with over 4,000 locations, they just need a dot on the map. They sell membership products that are really for people who are on the road, who need access to space sometimes and need to drop in, do some paperwork, meet a client, record a podcast, have a meeting, work for the day. They may not even have their own home office. They sell part-time private office memberships, and I think they do very well with those. And that is not a location-based membership. So they can deliver that membership across any of their locations. So it's very important to them. They also sell a lot of virtual mail memberships. So dots on the map are very important to their business model. It's very unique to them. Large companies will take space with IWG/Regus because of those dots on the map. Because when a big company wants a lot of options for locations for their employees, the Regus, out delivers the next largest operator, which is WeWork, by like 4 times. So, and then after WeWork, we have Industrious. So, and then after that, there are, a long tail of many, individual smaller networks of locations. So Regus is really it when we're talking about a global platform for workspace. So again, back to landlords. Landlords are an opportunity to add dots on the map. That's really what IWG is looking for to, continue to grow their network. And they are looking for ways to allocate corporate sales and marketing expenses. And they like management fees. So here are some things that you want to think about when they reach out to you. I'm going to go through 12 questions you should ask of them or of yourself or of some third party who can help you to validate some of these questions. Okay, so question number 1. Why are they reaching out to my building specifically? This is really important because you want to ask what due diligence they've done to determine that your location has enough demand to support co-working. Not co-working, in general or office space, but co-working in your building. Here's the challenge. There are a lot of office buildings out there that were not put up to attract consumers. And people who join co-working spaces are often consumers who are choosing where they get to work. That is not the case for some of IWG's clients, which I mentioned are enterprise clients who choose locations for their employees to go to, and the employees don't really have a choice. They have to show up to, whatever that location is in their town. But there are a lot of office buildings out there with vacancy that do not make for good co-working spaces. They are not going to be a good consumer product. They are not going to be chosen by consumers. They don't have a good location. They're not near amenities. They don't have good parking. They're not modern and up to date. There could be lots of issues. That does not mean that Regus will not put you on their list. So it is not because you are attractive and popular that Regus is reaching out. It is because you own a building that Regus is reaching out. So make sure you ask them why they're looking at your location, you specifically, and ask them for the due diligence. They may not have done any. And therefore, if you want to consider this opportunity, you need to do it because you need to really believe that your location is a great fit for and when I say co-working, let's just define that. I mean a mix of private offices, flex desks, and meeting rooms generally. So I do not mean an open plan concept. I mean mostly private offices and a mix of other products and services. So I'm just going to shorthand and call it co-working. So you really, really, really want to ask them for specific indicators. What you don't want to hear is we like the submarket. You don't want anything generic. And again, if they aren't doing the work, you should do the work if you're really curious about whether you are actually a fit for Flex. You want to ask them, question number 2, what demand assumptions they've built into the pro forma. What are they assuming about an occupancy ramp? Is this typical? Is this typical for a Regus location? Is this typical in general, industry-wide? Why do they expect this to be the case for your location? You want pricing assumptions, you want product mix. So you need to understand the business model in order to evaluate whether what they're showing you is reasonable or not. They are selling you an opportunity. So they are going to show you positive assumptions. So you need to know how to poke holes and validate what they're showing you because it could be completely realistic and maybe it's not. So you want to make sure you understand, and you can do that by working with a third party. We do business validation packages. We can talk about that more at the end, but really quickly, we do those packages all of the time for landlords like you or operators like you who have gotten that call so that you understand how the co-working business model works. We, in our business validation package, we do a local market demand report, a competitive analysis, and a 10-year pro forma. We do that under two approaches with an operating partner, or if you were to choose to run it yourself. And you can do that by going to everythingcoworking.com and clicking on book a call and booking that call. So that was a quick aside. Let me come back to the questions that you're asking IWG. Again, you want to really understand the business model. You want to ask the question, number 3, how much capital will I need to invest up front? So in the typical IWG management agreement partnership option, they do not take on any liability. They are in it for the upside. They're a highly experienced operating partner. They are a sales and marketing machine. That still doesn't mean that they can win with your location, but they are absolutely equipped, if it's the right location, to make it successful. But you are taking on the liability. So you are paying for the build out, the furniture, fixtures, equipment. So you're paying for the desk, the chairs, the appliances, the forks in the drawer in the kitchen, the coffee machines, the screens in the conference rooms. You're paying for everything. And so this means if you have a layout and you might be thinking, oh, I, have a pretty good layout that will probably work. You want to validate with a third party what they're proposing and the expenses of those changes. They're going to try to optimize your space for revenue, which is also, good for you, good for them. But what you want to understand is your total capital exposure and the payback timing based on realistic assumptions. So we want to make sure that you're not paying for a build out that never gets paid back. And that transitions us into question number 4. What is the management fee? How is it calculated? So IWG and plenty of other operators will get paid based on revenue, not profit. Again, this is typical of other operators who do management agreements, who are great partners, who do a lot of due diligence on the opportunities with the landlord. So what they're doing is pretty standard. Here's what you want to make sure you're considering. Since their management fees are based on revenue, they get paid even if there is no profit, even if you don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, then you can't pay back the build out investment that you made. So they don't have the liability. You have the liability for the build out and then for getting to operating profit. So ask what percentage, are there minimums? What happens if the space loses money? What happens if it doesn't cover operating expenses? Typically, you are on the hook for those operating expenses. So not only might you not be making money, but if the occupancy rate doesn't get to a point where it's breaking even on cash flow and covering operating expenses, not even paying rent, so there probably is not a rent hurdle in there. You are trying to, get to market rent through the profit line, probably. So make sure you understand how the cash flow works among the parties. And it is likely that if you're not making money and you're not covering expenses, you have to write a check to fund the operating expense account. So you could be funding that account rather than taking profit and paying back your build out. So question number 5, totally related. What should you expect for net income? So you want to have the conversations about revenue and occupancy and ramp up time and management fees and operating expenses, and then understand what does that mean for net income. So back to the build out question. I keep focusing on this because sometimes we look at what happens with cash flow and we haven't asked the question, what happens, how do I earn my build out and FF&E investment? So make sure, again, you're really focused on, is there going to be profit that comes to me? And how long will it take me if that profit comes as expected in the pro forma to pay back my build out and FF&E investment? And is that reasonable? And here's where I just want to pause. We're at question 6 of 12 and say that every building owner is going to have unique interests, a unique risk tolerance, a unique goal for the building. And so when you're considering, first, you're going to consider, is flex for me? Is this the right thing to do with my building? And then is IWG, probably read the Regus brand, the right operator for me? You may have a different answer than someone else down the street may have. Again, you may have different goals. You may have different access to capital. You may have, different long-term goals that you're trying to address by turning your building into flex. You may have a different hurdle for what your profit needs to be. So some operators may look at a sort of equivalent deal as someone down the road and say yes. And for some, that may not be a fit. So you really need to know, what your goals are, access to capital, what you want for the building, if your building is a good fit, if you like the model, if you believe in the assumptions, and then make your own decision. So back to, we're going to continue on question number 6, because there's one more point I wanted to mention on how long will it take me to earn back my build out and FF&E investment. So this is really important. And this is kind of under a watch out that I often see when building owners reach out to me. Oftentimes the building owners that reach out to me have smaller buildings, or it's a smaller space in a building. It might be 6,000 feet. It might be 8,000 feet. It might even be 10 or 12. Here's the issue. When you pro forma a co-working space that's less than, say, 15,000 square feet, this is, again, in general, the math for a management agreement often just doesn't work because there's not enough margin to pay a management fee and then to generate a meaningful cash flow that will pay back your FF&E and build out investment. So that leads us into question number 7. What are the margin assumptions that should be used, and are they realistic? So in a co-working business, I run a program called the Co-working Startup School, which is for operators who are generally signing a lease, who want to start a space. And when we work on their pro formas, we want to see a minimum of 20% operating margin. I love to see 25. If I see anything 30% or over, I feel a little concerned that it might be inflated. So I love like 25% on a pro forma, and then in reality, maybe we'll hit 20%. It just, you never know. It's a business. We cannot predict everything. Here's the challenge with 20%. If you're working under a management agreement and the operator is taking 14%, you need to ask IWG what their rate is. That takes your margin down a lot. So you're losing a lot of your margin. So you may still have some profit from this arrangement, but you have to ask, is that profit enough to cover the debt service, the capital recovery, the risk, the time invested in the project, the opportunity costs for that capital, etc. So it's really important, again, that you understand the assumptions and then all of the inputs and all of the factors that might affect your ability to get an ROI on this project. Okay, number 8. Who carries the downside risk if the space underperforms? We talked about this a little bit earlier, and it bears repeating. So you, the building owner, fund the build out. You, the building owner, cover the operating expenses. And you, the building owner, cover the management fee, even if there's no profit. So you could be writing checks to cover the management fee or the operating expenses if you're not covering those expenses with revenue from the space. So again, you really want to ask about the terms of the agreement and put that into your own pro forma. We can help with that. If you need a third party, we help landlords make these decisions really quickly because that's not usually your expertise. But if you're really curious about the model and want to understand, again, usually smaller spaces can't bear the load of the management fee. And that carries across any operator. It's hard to have an operating partner with a smaller space. Never say never, because again, it depends on what are the goals. Why are you creating the space? Some landlords are really don't need to generate a profit from flex space because there's a more strategic reason to have it offered in the building. So I have other landlord clients who are not trying to, hit market rent plus 15% with the profit from the co-working space. They're trying to hit market rent. They're trying to create an amenity for the other tenants. They're trying to be a really attractive building to other tenants. They're trying to activate the building. There are other strategic reasons that are part of a bigger strategic endeavor that make this make sense, even if it's not, you know, printing money for them. So again, know your goals, know what you want to accomplish as a building owner, and how this opportunity fits into those goals. So again, you don't necessarily need to be printing money, but you probably don't want to lose money either. So just make sure you really understand the numbers. Question number 9 on our list of 12 things you want to ask IWG, or could be any operating partner. What control do I have if performance isn't meeting expectations? Can you influence pricing, staffing, marketing spend, or are they making all of the decisions? What if they can't fill the space and they cut pricing by 30%? This is a tactic that would not be unexpected to see. So then your pro forma, take the revenue down by 30%, at least for the first year while these contracts run their course. So you may not have input on that. It may be in the agreement that they make all those decisions. So you really want to understand what control you have and how you can impact some of those decisions. Question number 10. How do you handle cannibalization and internal competition? So this is a really important question to ask someone like an IWG who already has other locations. I mean, I've seen this come up even for smaller operators who operate in specific markets. It's often really important for the building owner to understand what the non-compete protections are. What's the non-compete radius, for example? Are there overlapping areas? Is IWG operating a couple miles away? How then do corporate sales teams prioritize locations? Because the sales team's not going to live at your location. It will be centralized. And again, there are definitely advantages to being in the sales machine that IWG has created. They are total pros at managing a sales funnel, but you want to understand, if they're trying to put a lot of dots on the map and they're calling the landlord next door also, then how does that work? What are the non-competes? How can you feel comfortable that they're not going to open a location so close that it cannibalizes customers? Question number 11, does the brand fit my building and market? I think IWG, as an example, does a good job at identifying what brand in their portfolio would make sense for your property. But you want to understand what that looks like, what they're going to suggest, and feel comfortable that the brand, their pricing, and how they operate fits into your building positioning, especially if you are being strategic about what your options are. You might, this goes into number 12, is this better than my other options? Certainly, if you're considering an agreement with someone who just cold calls you, this would be a good time to pause again to really understand the business model and then understand, well, who else might operate my space? Should I operate my space? Should I partner with somebody who's local? Or does IWG make sense? And sometimes IWG is absolutely the right choice. So you just want to know what your options are and research and then make a decision. Okay, I want to just kind of revisit a couple of the watchouts. And then I want to comment on when this might work so that if you respond to that call or email, you have that discovery call, you're kind of poised to ask the right questions. Print this out, download the transcript. Management agreements are very challenging for smaller spaces. So a smaller space can hit the same profit margin as a larger space. It might still be 20-25%. It just has less inventory, so the revenue is going to be lower. So 20% of 500,000 in revenue is different than 20% of $100,000 in revenue, right? So a smaller space just doesn't tend to generate enough absolute profit to make it work for the building owner. Now, remember, IWG or even another operating partner, the other operating partners are probably more concerned about profit than the management agreement. So this is another thing to consider when you're thinking about a national partner like IWG and a more local operating partner, even just a smaller brand, right? Brands that have multiple locations, a Malin, a Mindspace, a Kiln, etc. So an Industrious. And all of those brands may have different ways of doing partnership agreements. So I want to be really clear about that. IWG kind of has a template. Again, I haven't seen it from what I understand that they follow, but that doesn't mean everybody's following the same formula. So this is your opportunity to really learn the model and then understand, okay, well, how would this work for you? And what if it was another operating partner who could align with your goals? Maybe all the liability is not yours, for example. Maybe there's not such a high management fee. Maybe there's a bigger profit share. So again, going back to some of the watchouts, IWG is probably mostly concerned with that management fee, and they're trying to allocate sales and marketing costs. So they're just putting dots on the map, and they will absolutely sign for smaller spaces that will not generate a lot of profit for you. They just will because their incentives are not the same as yours. Another operator this is an important consideration as well. If you are absolutely sure you want to try this model and you want to do it with IWG, they may be your only option because another local operator might want the management fee, but they are also, interested generally in profit share because for them, it's a bigger opportunity cost. IWG has 4,000 locations. They're adding, locations all the time. A smaller operator that is even operating globally, like a Mindspace, they're interested in locations that are truly a win-win for both parties. So they're going to need a bigger space in order to generate that net income because they're looking for more upside than just the management fee. IWG may also be looking for that, but that's not going to happen on a 6,000 square foot space. So you need to be prepared for that. So if they're showing you a pro forma that makes significant cash flow, net income for you on a 6,000 square foot space, I would question that really, really hard. Co-working does not work in every building. They probably are reaching out to every building. So they have an outbound call list of landlords that own properties in the area. It may be true that they like a certain submarket and they're doing some focusing, but you really need to ask those due diligence questions about why they like your location. So I don't want you to be, the girl at the dance who is excited to be pursued, but the guy's a jerk. So I'm not saying that's the case here, but make sure that they really like you and do want to date you and actually get married. That's another important question that is not on the list. So let's add question number 13. What is the termination clause? Actually, that might be one of the most important questions. If this isn't working, how do we break up? You definitely need to know that. You need to really clearly understand that. Are there termination fees? Are you committed to this relationship for years and years and years? What if your needs change? What happens if the building ownership transitions? You really want to know all of the what if questions and get those answered. And I want you to think really hard about what incentive IWG or another partner has to protect your capital. If they don't have any build out risk, lease liability, guaranteed fees, etc., then again, you might be writing checks to cover operating expenses, much less taking out profit. So you really, really, really want to understand the model and buy into the assumptions and believe that they're true. Not because you want to believe, but because you actually do believe. So let me leave off with, when might this make sense? What does IWG do well? Well, they know how to design an efficient build out. They're experts at designing and building space that's profitable. They care about profit more than, any most independent operators because they're not in it for community. They're not in it for these other things. Take a look at one of their Google business reviews. Go look at their reviews. They generally don't pursue them because their sales and marketing machine is so effective. They run Google ads and they do a lot of outbound. Their sales funnel is really, it's aggressive, it's persistent, it's consistent, it's all the things that I actually would want for many of you. They do really well with sales and marketing, and they have 4,000 locations. So, of course, they have some brand equity. So, there are absolutely reasons. If you have a space that's over about 15,000 square feet, then they might be a fit for you. But again, there are other options out there. There are other operators who are local. There are operators who will come in and operate your space for you on different types of partnership structures. So you want to know what all of your options are. So if IWG has called and you're curious about how co-working might perform in your building, and you really want to understand the business model, and you want to do a business validation package, we do that. Again, it includes a local market demand report, competitive analysis, and a 10-year pro forma based on kind of estimated fit outs. We can also do an upgrade to the package and get you an actual test fit. We will also run the pro forma with two operational approaches, as if you're running it as a management or partnership agreement, or if you want to run it yourself. And certainly we can help you run it yourself or find you a partner. Go to everythingcoworking.com, click book a call, and we can talk about what that package looks like and help you validate your location and the business model and help you really understand the business model so that you can evaluate these options yourself.